on Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's enemies list? That is the question. Good morning, Boston. Okay, a lot to talk about today. A stunning development. It's not just a local story, of course. Well, actually, it kind of is a local story, but the local sycophantic media is so desperately trying to run cover for Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. This is bizarre. It's actually more of a national, if you can believe it, story, even international story, than it is a local story. Although some media outlets here are covering it, but you can see the libs are in overdrive to cover this and sweep this under the rug. So they want to cover this up. Boston Moonbat Mayor Michelle Wu, as you know, a darling on the far left. She is someone who they see now as a future AOC, a future Ilhan Omar, maybe even a future Elizabeth Warren. Well, Michelle Wu, hardcore pro-Black Lives Matter, radical left Democrat mayor, has now been caught putting out an enemies list. And this is an enemies list of her political critics, anyone who disagrees with her, anyone who dares to call her out or show up at protests. And she has now, apparently, according to multiple media reports, she has handed over this list to the Boston Police Department in order now to crack down and lash out at her critics. This, my friends, is communism 101. This is pure dictatorship. There's just no other word to put it. There's no other phrase. So here is now what we do know, and I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. First of all, before I get into the meat and potatoes of this story, what I find absolutely incredible is that you have the British Daily Telegraph, the U.S. Daily Mail, forgive me, what am I saying? The UK Daily Mail. You have the Daily Mail in Britain. You have the Telegraph in Great Britain. You have other newspapers in Europe, in England, who are covering this story. That's how shocking and outrageous it is. You have national media outlets across the board who are covering this as a massive scandal. And yet, here in the local Boston media, you're getting some play in the Boston Herald, you're getting some play in a few other media outlets, but for the most part, they're trying to cover this up. The local Boston media is trying to pretend there is no scandal here, when clearly this is a massive scandal. And in any other normal, sane society would lead her to resign on the freaking spot. So I want you to think about how absurd the media here in Boston has become. They are so in the tank for the Democrats, so in the tank for this crazy radical left-wing mayor, that they are now willing to try to bury and suppress one of the biggest stories in the country and in some ways in the world. The British papers are covering this. The national U.S. media, whether it's left, center, or right, are all over this saying, what the hell is going on in Boston? And yet our local media here, outside of a few exceptions, don't even want to touch this with a 10-foot pole? Pathetic. Honestly, pathetic. So here is now what we do know, and this should concern everybody. And to people listening across the country, this is not Boston specific. This is the future of the Democratic Party. This is the radical Democrat Party as it exists today. This is now what you're in store for, I don't care where you live, whether you live on the East Coast, you live in the Midwest, you live on the West Coast, you live in the South. This is the future of the Democrat Party. So according now to a Freedom of Information request made by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's opponents, her critics, saying there's something going on. People are getting harassed. The police are giving them visits. They're being targeted. There's something going on. And so they asked for a public records request, and they finally got it. It wasn't easy, but they got it. And lo and behold, what did they find? They found an email sent by senior Wu administration officials to the Boston Police Department, in which the mayor sent a list of enemies, a list of her political enemies. And there are multiple names on that list. And in that email, the police are told to, quote unquote, check them out. Take a look. Go after them. Pay them a visit. And who are these people that Michelle Wu wants to target? Who are these people that she's now ordered her Gestapo to go after? We've had her on the show multiple times. Shana Catone. Well, because of the fact that she criticized Mayor Wu and her draconian lockdown policies, and because of this, Shana Catone organized several lawful, legitimate, peaceful protests. For this, Shana Catone is now on the list. Another one is a candidate for Boston City Council. Now, forgive me, I mean no disrespect to her. I've seen two names. The Boston Herald refers to her as Christine, I believe it's Vitale, Vitale. If I mispronounce her last name, I mean no offense. I've also seen it as, she goes by her own website as Catherine Vitale. So I don't know if it's Catherine, Christine, what Vitale, Vitale. She's a staunch Wu critic, saying that she has failed the city of Boston, especially when it comes to the opiate epidemic, especially when it comes to mass homelessness, especially when it comes to the skyrocketing crime in the city. She's completely right, by the way. For this, she's on the enemies list. Those that were outside her home protesting her, outside her Roslindale home, others who showed up at a Dorchester Day parade. All they did was show up at the Dorchester Day parade with a megaphone, protesting. The last time I checked, that's called lawful expression in a public square. So they don't have the right now to criticize Mayor Wu in public? We don't have the right now to protest? So we don't have freedom of assembly? We don't have freedom of speech? We don't have freedom of expression? And her thugs around her, and that's what they are. They are thugs. Sent out an email to the Boston Herald and others saying, well, the reason why we sent this enemies list, and they admit it's an enemies list, is because at the Dorchester Day Parade, or when they were outside her Roslindale home, the mayor felt intimidated. She felt physically intimidated, and she felt it was a form of harassment. And so it was the Boston Police Department that asked Mayor Wu for the enemies list. As if the Boston PD don't have anything better to do but to contact the mayor and go, excuse me, Mayor Wu, you want us to crack some heads for you? Is there anybody in particular that some of these protesters, you want us to take care of them? Like, seriously? You expect us to believe this dreck? So let me get this straight. Protesters can be in front of the home illegally under federal law of Brett Kavanaugh's house and threaten to murder him and hang him and his entire family. That's okay for you libs and you leftists. But God forbid, as every other previous mayor has had to endure, You go in front of that person, that mayor's house, and you protest peacefully and civilly. And all of a sudden now, not only are you banned from doing so, but now she even then puts him on an enemies list. She's coming after me. She's coming after you. She's coming after anyone who challenges this communist thug. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Sandy and I were just talking off air last couple of minutes. Even she's shocked. Oh, seriously. She's like, Jeff, holy mackerel. What does it take for the local Boston liberal media to do its freaking job? And she says, the LA Times has this story. USA Today has this story. I mean, Britain's Daily Telegraph, the Daily Mail have this story. I mean, it's everywhere. Fox has this story. CNN has this story. Who doesn't have this story? And yet Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 25, the Boston Globe, you can run down the whole list. Most of the entire Boston Moonbat media, nothing, zero. They haven't touched this story as if it never happened. So here you have the mayor of Boston, a darling of the radical left. Make no mistake about it. She is one of their up-and-coming stars. Is now caught in an email, and then her people had to admit, there's no denying it now, that she has now requested that the Boston Police Department investigate and go after, quote unquote, people that she has put on an enemies list. So she has dozens of people, at least, 15, I believe was the last count. So, sorry, over a dozen people, my mistake, on an enemies list. And they include Shana Catone is one of them, as I mentioned, a candidate for the Boston City Council, people who have spoken out against her, people who oppose her. And she is asking the Boston Police Department to go and hammer these people, to crack down on them. And her critics are already on social media saying, how is this different than Nixon's enemies list? This is quote unquote Nixonian. And this enemies list that Nixon purportedly had was one of the grounds for articles of impeachment that they were drawing up against Tricky Dick, against Nixon. But has the Democratic Party, you want to talk about how far to the left they have gone. So now they are singling out political opponents and critics, dissidents, and telling the police, go get him. Go get him. This woman is dangerous. I'm talking about Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston. This is another, what I tell you, she's another Alexandria Fidel Castro Cortez. She's another AOC. She's another Ilhan Omar. She's another Rashida Tlaib. She is another Elizabeth Warren or another Bernie Sanders. They do not believe in individual freedom and personal liberty. These are hardcore communists. And as Sandy and I were talking during the break, who is it now that was pushing a national censorship board? The Democrats. Who are the ones now caught red-handed? Red-handed, as I talked about on this show. Urging big tech, pressuring social media giants to deliberately silence, suppress, and censor conservative critics on social media, the Biden regime, Democrats. Who are the ones who have weaponized the FBI and the Department of Justice to literally infiltrate Catholic churches, to round out and weed out so-called critics of the Biden administration, the Democrats? Who are the ones who have labeled parents who simply go to school board meetings and complain about critical race theory being taught to their children, or transgenderism or gay pornography to first and second graders, and now the FBI is looking at them as domestic terrorists? Democrats. I could do this all. Who is the one that has labeled all of us domestic extremists, enemies of the people, enemies of the state, as the Russians would put it, and urge the FBI to investigate patriots, conservatives, libertarians, anyone who criticizes this regime, the Democrats and Biden. So what you're seeing now with Michelle Wu, this is the future, in many ways the present, but certainly the future of the Democratic Party. There is no more anymore free flow of ideas, free expression, free speech, the right to disagree. No, 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 no. This is now one-party rule, one-party police state tactics. Either you agree with this communist mayor, and that's what she is. Let's make no mistake about it. Or she puts your name on an enemies list and then sends him to the police. Wink, wink. Go take care of him. Now, I want to ask all of you, in all seriousness, what Mayor Wu has now done, how is this different from communist China? How is this different from Putin's Russia? How is this different from Maduro's Venezuela or the communist regime in Cuba? So you show up at a parade and you protest and suddenly the cops come after you and knock on your door? As Paul Craney from Mass Fiscal Alliance, we've had him on here at least a dozen times over the years, a numbers guy who goes on about runaway spending and debt and economic mismanagement. I mean, Paul Craney wouldn't hurt a fly. Came out over the weekend and said, whatever you do, don't tweet at Mayor Wu. Literally. If you tweet and criticize her, you're going to be put on an enemies list. This is what the Democrats have in store for all of us. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. This is me now speaking directly to Mayor Wu. You gutless, yellow-livered coward. You communist thug. And that's what you are. You know what? Don't go after Shana Catone. Don't go after Paul Craney. Don't go after people on this show who have the guts to show up at a Dorchester Day parade to criticize you and your dismal, pathetic record. Why don't you come after me? Why don't you come after me? Why don't you try to send your Gestapo thugs after me? I dare you. I dare you. Because you know I'm your number one critic in this city and in this state. Why don't you come after me, Michelle Wu? Why don't you do that? And I'll tell you, then I'll take this to the national media, I'll take it to the international media, and I will expose and unmask you for the dictator and tyrant that you are. This is the United States of America. And it's about time you and all of you on the radical left understood this. Get it through your thick progressive skulls. There's something called the First Amendment. You have the right to criticize your leaders. You have the right to peacefully and civilly protest, no matter how annoying it may be or how uncomfortable it may make you feel. It's called freedom. And you and the likes of you on the radical left, from AOC to Rashida Tlaib to Ilhan Omar to Ayanna Pressley to Bernie Sanders to Joe Biden to Elizabeth Warren, what you are totalitarian thugs. As David Horowitz famously said, a progressive is nothing more than a totalitarian waiting, dying to come out. And now you've shown us your true colors. This is what they have in store for all of us, my friends. It's not even censorship. They've gone beyond censorship. It's no longer now having the government tell big tech, quiet this person, delete that tweet, deny this person's account, suppress this, cancel this, bury this, hide this. No, they've now moved beyond Big Brother censorship. Now it's the proverbial knock on the door. Now it's, let's go to the Gestapo. Let's go to the KGB. And now we give a list to the police. You take care of them. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear about them. I want nothing to do with them. She should resign on the spot. On the spot. And one last point. I know I said it. I know I've said it multiple times. But to every single liberal media outlet in this entire city, shame on you. Shame on you. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace to your profession. This is one of the biggest national stories in the United States. It's actually now an international story. And you losers can't cover it because this embarrasses and damages the mayor? And what it shows now beyond a shadow of a doubt is whatever her intentions may have been, this is no longer the sweet, nice Michelle Wu that people thought they were getting when they voted for her. Power has corrupted her. And she has now been transformed into a communist dictator. That's what she's become. And you don't have the guts to cover this story? Because you're so in the tank for the Democrats and for this wannabe AOC? You're not journalists. You're pathetic hacks. 617-266-6868 is the number. So, let me ask you, what do you make now of this stunning revelation that the mayor of Boston has an enemies list? They're comparing it to Nixon's enemies list. And she handed it over to the captain of the Boston Police Department for the police to take care of these people, to go after them. Should Mayor Wu resign? Should she be forced out of office? And the media, why won't they report the abuse of power and thuggishness at the heart of this administration? Why are they covering for Michelle Wu? 617-266-6868. Lines are blazing. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
And thank you for covering this very, very important story, Jeff. Just let me say, Michelle Wu can claim she's Taiwanese all you want because her tactics are coming straight out of mainland China. And what as Donald Trump has always said about the media is they're America's biggest enemies. Where is Channel 5 Investigates? Where is Channel 4? Channel 25, Channel 15? Where is the mainstream media on this story? You're absolutely right. Tactics like this that have been exposed, if true, call for her immediate resignation or get her out of office. We cannot live in a democracy where we have people like this trampling on the rights of American citizens. This is an example as to which the Justice Department should walk into Boston, investigate this story, and if true, prosecute those who have put this policy in place, violating the civil rights of Bostonians in their actions. I mean, here we have a police commissioner, Cox, who is in the pocket of Michelle Wu. So he's owning to her. We have City Councilor Kendra Lara, who's going to appear in court today, I believe, on multiple violations, including injuring a child. She will be in the pocket of Michelle Wu. And you mentioned communism. That's something that I've mentioned long ago. These people are not progressives. All you need to do is look at her policies. Free buses, free this, free that. Well, the taxpayers, they're not free. It's the taxpayers who are paying for this. All in an attempt to gather votes. My suggestion to the Boston PD is to stand down. You don't want to get involved in this because if someone within Boston has the nerve in the mainstream media to bring this forward, it's going to implicate the Boston PD, and that's going to be a black eye for them.
You're dead on. CJ, you're, as usual, you're absolutely dead on. CJ, as always, thank you so much for your call. 617-266-6868. No, and as you were talking, CJ, look, this is this is now the National Democratic Party. This is their blueprint, and now they're applying it in city after city after city. And this is why Michelle Wu is really, she's the future of the Democratic Party. What has Biden done? What did Obama do before him, but especially now accelerated under Biden? They co-opted law enforcement, the leadership of law enforcement. They co-opted the Department of Justice, the FBI director, top people at the FBI, top people at the CIA, top people at the NSA. Well, what is she now doing? She's co-opting the leadership of the Boston Police Department. It's so obvious. And it's that you corrupt them, you politicize them, and now she's turned the leadership, not the rank and file, because they can't stand her, but the leadership of the Boston Police Department into now an arm of her administration. That's what she's now turning them into her personal Gestapo. That's what she's doing. And saying, no, you're going to do my dirty work. And look, I got to say this. I was not a big fan of Marty. You know that, Marty Walsh. Not a big fan of his. But look, to give the guy his due, and not just him, Mayor Menino before him. Again, I wasn't a big fan of Mumbles, as I used to call him. No, Manja Menino, as I used to call him. I wasn't a big fan of his policies. But say what you want. They never had an enemies list. And people protested in front of Menino's house all the time. They protested outside of Marty Walsh's house all the time. They didn't come out and pass a ban saying you can't protest outside their home, as this thug did. They were all kinds of, events where they spoke at. There were protesters. Bunker Hill Day parades, Dorchester Day parades, all kinds of parades they were participating in. And yeah, there's people on a megaphone and they're criticizing and they're protesting. They never said, you can't do that. Sick the police on them. So this new idea now being floated by her people, well, she felt harassed. She felt physically intimidated. She's so scared. A little snowflake Michelle Wu. It's the growing assault that you're seeing from the radical left and the Democrats on the entire country. It's not just in Boston. This is that's why it's a national story. People can sense this is now the dark turn the Democrats have taken. They're waging a war on free speech, on free expression, on freedom of assembly, and on the right to protest if you're protesting them. She's got to go. She's got to go. And I'm sorry, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But how do you have the mayor implicated in an enemies list, her enemies list, and they admit it's her list, that she sends to the Boston Police Department to go after ordinary citizens, not just political opponents or candidates, but ordinary citizens. And this joke of a local media? Nothing? Nothing? I mean, the Herald covered it, some other isolated outlets, but for the most part, nothing. All weekend, I've been waiting for this story. Nothing. 617. What a joke. Seriously, man, what a joke. 617-266-6868. Frank in Middleborough. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Frank?
Good. There's a couple of different other things that I've called, 4, 5, 7, 10. And I've asked them, how come you've never reported this? And
Frank, I'm sorry. I hate to do this to you. It was actually my bad. We're up against a hard break. I heard 90 seconds. It was actually 30 seconds. Frank, I want to come right back to you. Frank calls up the local TV channels. What did they say? Okay, if you're just waking up or tuning in now, we're going to go straight to Frank in Middleborough. He's been trying to contact Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10. They are not covering one of the biggest stories in the country. The national media is, as well as the British media. But our own local media, good luck. Good luck. Our Moonbat mayor, Michelle Wu, has now been caught in a massive scandal. She has compiled an enemies list. Ordinary Boston citizens, people who protest her, criticize her, have written criticizing her on Twitter. These people now, the names have been given to the captain of the Boston Police Department for them now to investigate and go after her enemies. And they said Richard Nixon should have been impeached over this. Well, what about Mayor Michelle Wu? Let's go to Frank in Middleborough. Frank, I'm sorry I had to cut you off. We're back before the break. So, Frank, you called up some of these local TV stations, said, why aren't you covering this? Please pick up where we left off.
Yeah, okay, like I said, I've done it in the past, even with Hunter Biden's laptop. I've called them and asked them how come they don't report it, and pretty much all they do is basically hang up on you. So if everybody starts calling them up, they're going to have to do something about it.
Frank, are you surprised that there is an enemies list? That she would be so stupid to put it down in an email and tell the Boston police, the captain and others, high senior officials, wink, wink, go get him?
Above the law. They can do whatever they want, They can do what they want, when they want, to who they want.
Unbelievable. Frank, I take it you've been following politics in this city for a long time now. And is it me or are they just getting worse? I mean, I know they were bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they were ever great. But it just seems to me they're just getting worse and worse and worse. Am I wrong?
Oh, and I think everybody should start just calling them up and ask them how come they're not covering it, and maybe something better.
So agree. I so agree, Frank. No, it's time for us to really, we got to get up off our rear ends, and we got to start making calls, write emails, get more active. Because, this is beyond the pale. This really is unacceptable. Frank, thank you so much for that call. Really, I really appreciate it. Look, please call Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, 25. Call the Globe. Ring their, just ring their phone off the hook. Email them. And say, here's one of the biggest stories in the country, one of the biggest stories in the world. All kinds of, dozens of media outlets are covering this. The mayor has now put her political enemies and opponents and critics on an enemies list, for God's sakes, which she admits. They're not even denying it. They were caught red-handed with the email, and they go, yeah. Their defense is, well, she felt intimidated when they showed up and protested, and so we gave this to the police. So are we living now? Is this really the People's Republic of Massachusetts? Is this not what we've become? So now the mayor just picks off any enemy that criticizes her, or, as Paul Craney said, because now they're going after that poor guy? Mass Fiscal Alliance? All I did was go on Twitter. I just called her out on Twitter. And now I find out she's after me? Like, what did I do? She supports defunding the police. She supports the abolition of prisons. It's the mayor. It's the mayor. She's pro-Black Lives Matter. She rationalizes and excuses mass looting, rioting, pillaging, plundering, murder committed by the radical left, by BLM and Antifa. She has turned Boston into a massive sanctuary city. The opiate fentanyl epidemic is out of control. Crime is skyrocketing. Homelessness is rampant. Have you gone to Mass and Cass? Now you're starting to see in Boston what you've been seeing in San Francisco and other cities. Public urination, forgive me, public defecation. She's turning the city into a freaking sewer. And now, if you call her out, suddenly now she sends you to basically to a private Gestapo and puts you on an enemies list, and then tells the leadership of the Boston Police Department, "I pay your salaries. Go get them." Ay ay ay, ay ay ay. Now, the only reason why this is happening, let's be very clear, is because of the Bills in Sudbury, the Bens in North Andover, the Chris's in Gloucester. I'm telling you, I'm just laying it all out there. The rank and file of the Democratic Party loves this. Because this is no longer your father or grandfather's Democratic Party. This is the Communist Democratic Party. And as one person texted me, saying, "Jeff, my son went to Harvard with Michelle Wu. She was a big supporter of Elizabeth Warren even back in the day." These are hardcore radical leftists. The Constitution means nothing. The First Amendment means nothing. Freedom means nothing. It's all about total power and total control. 617-266-6868. So here's what you're seeing. In front of our eyes, from the Biden regime all the way down, Democrats are criminalizing dissent. As Alan Dershowitz has been now saying for years, what the Democrats now are doing, which is what they do in communist countries, they are criminalizing political differences. You disagree, it's a thought crime. You oppose, it's a political crime. And now you're on an enemies list. And she's told the police, "Go get him. Go get him." I want to know what the police have done to every single person on that enemies list. 617-266-6868 is the number. Joe in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Good morning, sir. How are you
Hi, Joe.
today?
I'm good. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing wonderful. I was just wondering, could Shayna and the rest of the people on that list do some kind of class action suit against anyone that's on that email that sent it out, including the Boston police, including her staff, so that names are out in the public, not just Michelle Wu, but her staff that are involved in this?
Joe, I definitely think if Shayna is listening, I know she often listens to this show, I would sue her pants off. If I was Shayna Catone, I would sue Michelle Wu. I would sue her administration. She would win. She would win. And maybe even put together a class action suit of all those names on that enemies list. And we want to know who exactly was involved in this, who in her entire administration, who in the Boston Police Department. Was this just the Boston Police captain? Did this go all the way up to the commissioner? How far does this go? And this is just the email that we discovered. I'm telling you, there are other emails. And I will bet you, Joe, the best steak at the best steakhouse in Boston, that you've got other emails out there where Michelle Wu is probably directing the police how to go after some of these people. Get them on this. Get them on that. Look up their file. Investigate them. Follow them. Surveil them. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Because that communist thug cannot handle any criticism. I've never seen someone as thin-skinned as her. You criticize her, and this woman goes berserk. So, look, she's not fit to be mayor. She should not be running any elected office in this country. This woman, to me, is a pure totalitarian thug. How the people of Boston elected her is beyond me. But, Joe, I'm telling you, you're completely right. Shayna should sue the pants off of her.
Thinking that, she feels intimidated, the mayor. What about the people on this list? Who I would be scared out of my mind when I'm going to get pounded on the door, not by just Boston police, but the FBI with SWAT teams and a helicopter. And, because I missed a ticket that I might have got 7 years ago. They could create anything or find anything that, they just blow out of proportion. I would be petrified.
Well, there's one person on this enemies list who's asked to remain anonymous. Not the person's on the list, but has texted me and said, Jeff, please, I don't want my name associated with what I'm about to tell you. She said, it's funny because over the last year, this person says, I've been feeling harassed at so many levels and persecuted. It's like they want to drive me out of this state. Almost verbatim now is what that person wrote to me. Now, I'd love to follow up and say, could you give me some more specific examples? But I think it's what you're talking about, Joe. Is there an unpaid ticket from 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Whatever. We're going to check how this, this person's driving. We're going to hand out ticket after ticket. We're going to surveil this person. We're going to spy on this person. Any little infraction, anything. We're just going to, basically make life so miserable for you that you just leave. You go, I don't want to put up with this anymore. And Joe, I urge all of you, the media did cover some of the protests when Mayor Wu spoke, what she's citing as quote unquote intimidation. Joe, she's surrounded by security. She's got supporters cheering her on. She's giving a speech or she's walking in a parade shaking people's hands, and you see 4 or 5 people with placards protesting, like in the background, and 1 or 2 on a megaphone. I mean, every mayor faces this kind of criticism. Marty Walsh did, Menino did, Mayor Adams. Mayor Adams, if this is intimidating to her, what the hell is Mayor Adams? Mayor Adams is getting booed and vilified at every place he gives a speech. He's not saying, I gotta call the police, put him on an enemies list. This is scary. Joe, this woman is so pathetic that she can't handle any criticism whatsoever, and her first instinct is sick the police.
Absolutely scary. Absolutely scary.
Joe, this is our country. This is the Democratic Party today. That's why this scandal is resonating across the country. Because many say, well, that's us. We have the same thing in California. We have the same thing in Oregon. We have the same thing in Chicago. We have that's what everyone's saying. Yeah, what you guys are seeing in Boston, that's what we're seeing here.
Working its way all through the country. It's working its way all through the country.
It's a cancer.
And it is. And I'm petrified of being thrown in jail for just standing on a corner with the Trump sign.
Joe, welcome to my world. Joe, God bless you and thank you for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Now, what I'm going to do after the show, probably tonight, because there's more people on Twitter in the evening than in the day, obviously, is I'm going to go at Mayor Wu. I'm going to call her out on Twitter at her handle, and I'm going to tell her she's a communist thug. And I'm going to say, what are you going to do? You're going to send the Boston police after me now? I'm going to I'm going to make it public. I'm going to put it on social media. And watch, she's such a pathetic snowflake that I'm telling you, I'm probably on some secret enemies list. I guarantee it. But she's going to put me on the enemies list. Now, this is a very interesting text from 781. You can text us 70470, 70470. Jeff, Michelle Wu's enemies list and putting it down in an email is not a sign of stupidity. It's a sign of confidence. Bingo. Bingo. Now, and you're noticing this with the Democrats, they're just so brazen now. They don't even hide it. Why? Because Maura Healey's the governor. So who's going to go after him? The governor? The state attorney general? Who? Secretary of State? Who? Who's going to go after him in this state? Who? So they feel now, because they have one party rule and one party dominance, both in the government, on Beacon Hill, they control most of the mayoral offices, that they can do whatever they want. Like a little tin pot dictator. And put it down on paper, or whatever, in an email. Put it down. It's not even a call where you have plausible deniability. What'd you talk about? I can't remember. It's on paper. Here's the list. I have an enemies list. Here are the names. Go get them. Get them for what? Just get them. Don't worry. You invent the crime. Go get them. 617. By the way, in all seriousness, this is why when I drive now, I'm like, my kids make fun of me. They call me Old Man Jenkins. That's their nickname. I'm Mr. 40 miles an hour. I'm like, no. I know they're out to get me. I don't want to give them any excuse to pull me over. I drive slow. I don't break one traffic violation or one traffic law. My stops, you got to see my stops. Stop. Look left. Look right. Okay, keep going. I don't give them anything to hit me with. They'll come after me anyway, but I'm going to try to make it at least a little difficult for them. They're going to have to really be creative. 617-266-6868 is the number. Tony in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Why shouldn't Chairwoman Wu do these kind of things? She's just taken her, like you said, she's taken her example from big government. And if you can do what they've done to President Trump, what are all these little people? They're nothing that are standing in her way. They don't have President Trump's assets or fame. So, of course, they're hoping that they'll just buckle under with these things. This is definitely the one I got a kick out of over the weekend is what's his name from New York, who prosecuted Donald Trump, Alvin Bragg. He's let all the criminals out of the jail. Now he's saying he fears for his wife and family and himself when he rides the subway. Michelle Wu, maybe what she should fear is all the people she's let out of jail.
Oh, you're right, Tony. She's emptied the jails. And she's basically let it be known, you're not going to be prosecuted for crimes in Boston. If you're a criminal, Boston it's a safe haven. If I was some gangbanger thug, I'd set up shop in Boston. And I'd put a big portrait of Michelle Wu on the wall. Like that, hey, nobody could say a bad word against our mayor. Tony, I'm just curious. What do you think accounts? This is a big, sexy story. CNN's covering it. Fox is covering it. USA Today, LA Times, the New York Post. I could just go on and on. This is all over the place. And yet, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 25, the Boston Globe, the Boston Herald has covered it to their due, to give them their due. But outside of the Boston Herald and the Boston Broadside, no one else has touched it. What accounts for the media deliberately ignoring this story? One of the biggest stories, obviously in the city and the state, but in the country.
And what I've come to the conclusion of, and I'm talking in every phase of government, it's all money. They're being paid off. They're just being, one way or another. You're not gonna pay the head of a news organization what you're gonna pay a politician. But I'm telling you, it's just follow the money. If we could ever follow the money, even when some quote-unquote Republican senator or congressman votes the other way, I call his office and say, what are we supposed to think? Who are you getting the money from that's making you do this? Where's your money coming from? You got to be on the take, because why would you go for this? And I do that on a regular basis. The same here. If you could find out, maybe it's a free summer house for a while down, but people are definitely being paid off.
Well, I mean, either they're being paid off, either they're being paid off, or they're being threatened, or they're so aligned with the Democratic Party that they feel it's their job to be their mouthpiece. Whatever it is, it's pathetic, and frankly, now it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Tony, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. I've got a stunning poll result for you. You want to talk what crystallizes now this scandal and shows the future direction of the Democratic Party and why the Democrats now have gone full authoritarian, full fascist. This one will chill you. That story next. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text us 70470, 70470. This person has asked me, please, Jeff, don't mention my name. Keep my identity secret, which I promise. So I'm going to be just a tad vague. But in essence, this person says, Jeff, I'm heading to New Hampshire. I've been targeted now in this state because of my political views. I'm a conservative. They took my LTSC basically for no reason. So now this poor person, they took, which I know they're doing as well to other people. So their ability to conceal and carry or to have a gun. My business has been targeted repeatedly, multiple audits, credit lines cut, so much worse. I run a legal business. I don't want to say exactly what that person does. But he goes, I've never done anything wrong. They just keep coming after me and I refuse to hide my views. And the only choice is to punch back. Well, that's all you can do. You have to show them you're not afraid and that you're not going to be silenced. You're not going to be intimidated. You're not going to be muzzled. And that's how I do it. I urge everybody else to do the same. Now, speaking of silencing speech, who are the shock troops behind Michelle Wu? Who increasingly are the shock troops behind the Democratic Party? It's a lot of them are left-wing millennials. And I want you to, this is an unbelievable story. Hat tip to Newsweek. So Newsweek magazine had a survey, a poll done by Redfield and Wilton Strategies. Now listen to this. Almost half of millennials in the United States, those aged between 25 and 34, think that referring to a transgender person by the wrong pronoun should be a criminal offense. This is unbelievable. So this is according to Newsweek. According to the survey by this big polling firm, 44% of those aged 25 to 34 think, quote, referring to someone by the wrong gender pronoun, he/him, she/her, should be a criminal offense, i.e., the police should knock on your door and arrest you and put you in jail because you saw a man or a boy and you said he, him, and they said, no, I'm a girl or whatever. I identify as a she or a her or a they or a them or an it. And so for this, I swear to you, 44% say lock them up, throw them in jail, versus just 31% who disagree. And apparently the rest, it's neither agree nor disagree or don't know. So basically it's, let me put my finger up in the wind and let's see where the wind blows. Now, apparently, listen to this, For those aged 35 to 44, it's still pretty bad. It's not as high as 25 to 34 as the millennials. But 35 to 44, 38% think, quote unquote, misgendering should be illegal and you should go to jail. 35% disagree, and 26%, well, they just don't know or don't have an opinion. So what you're seeing now, this is the by the way, when you're not talking about these two age groups, let's say the American people combined, 65% say no way should you go to jail because you quote unquote misgendered somebody. Only 19% of the total population believe you should go to jail. But my point is this. Look at this, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, but let's just stick to the millennials. 25 to 34. You want to put someone behind bars because you quote unquote misgendered someone? So let's say the incident that I had, or I went to Chipotle a while back, as I told everybody, and he was clearly a guy. I mean, there's a massive Adam's apple. He had a huge mask on. And I referred to him, because he's a him, as sir. And the guy went crazy. Insisting he's a she. Now, for what I did at Chipotle, hi, yes, sir. Yes, thank you, sir. I'll have that. Yes, I'll have sour cream and corn with my chicken. Yes, thank you, sir. Literally, that. Slap the handcuffs and throw me in an effing gulag? Okay. This is where Michelle Wu gets her support. This are the people who are voting for Biden. This is the grassroots, the backbone of the Democratic Party. They are becoming increasingly totalitarian because their base is becoming increasingly totalitarian. If they want to throw you in jail for the wrong pronoun, what do you think they want to do to you if you dare to criticize, say, Michelle Wu? If you go after one of their leaders, my God, I bet they want to put you in a gulag. Forget prison, a slave labor camp. This is what years of indoctrination, brainwashing, and propaganda in the schools, this is what you end up producing. The most intolerant, authoritarian generation in American history. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's a huge national story. Local media, they're trying to avoid it, but we'll see how long they can do it. Boston Moonbat Mayor Michelle Wu, now caught red-handed. In fact, now forced to admit she has compiled an enemies list. Critics, opponents, ordinary citizens who protest her or disagree with her, and she has handed that list over to the Boston Police Department, their top people. Investigate, go after every single one of them. She's a communist dictator. And now the question is, what are we going to do about it? 617-266-6868. Lines are blazing. Anthony in Middleton. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Jeff, there's people on the North End on that list, and I'm telling you, things are going to get pretty scary around here. What she has done is called intimidation. That's the Democrats' theme. That's all they do is intimidate. Donald Trump said it himself. They can come after me. They're going to come after you, and they are. The best thing to do, and I am doing it, tomorrow I'm expecting offers on my house, is I am moving out of Mass. I'm going to southern New Hampshire and Florida. Every other Saturday, we go to Seabrook, intersection of Route 1 and 107, and have a Trump standout. We can't even talk because the horns are beeping so much in support of the president.
In the end, they're not coming after me. They're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way.
I mean, Anthony, you hit the nail on the head, and Trump hit the nail on the head. And that's what, to me, Michelle Wu is now showing. I mean, they're after us. He's just in the way. And, you know, Anthony, you talked about how many people in the North End were on that list. These are business owners. You know, this is, again, we have a national audience. The North End is a heavily Italian or ethnically Italian part of Boston. It's known for its incredible Italian food, Italian restaurants. She's been harassing the restaurant owners on the North End. She's strangling them. She's making it impossible for these people to make a living. And so they have come out and said, look, what did we ever do to this poor woman? What did we ever do to her? But she's trying to bankrupt our businesses. She's imposing crushing taxes. She won't even let us do outdoor dining. Like, she wants to bankrupt us. And so they've criticized her. And for this, she's putting owners of restaurants, restaurant owners, on an enemies list. I mean, Anthony, I can't believe I'm living in the United States of America. Anthony, I've got to ask you, is this issue of Democrat intimidation, Democrat totalitarianism, Democrat fascism, because that's what this is, it's fascism, is this going to resonate with voters in 2024? Are they just sick of this?
Absolutely, Jeff. But here's the problem. All these politicians in our government work for us. They are our employees. We always hear that. I pay your salary, blah, blah, blah. Well, when did it get to the point when they started to run the companies that we own? Our employees are punishing us, but yet we have to keep paying them when in a real business we would fire them. The only way you can fight back is, I hate to say this, but Massachusetts is gone. The only way you can fight back is get the hell out of here. Because I got people from Massachusetts asking me to help them to support, Bruce Tabb. We want to support this guy, that guy. No, you guys can't even control your own public schools, and you want me to help you control the government? Massachusetts is gone. Get the hell out. New Hampshire's kind of purple. Sununu will be gone soon. I'm going to New Hampshire and Florida with like-minded people. Life is too short to fight people that you will never win.
Anthony, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a lot of you are texting in and emailing. Many of you are shocked. What many of you are saying is, Jeff, I had no idea this story even broke. And you're right. I'm looking at it, Jeff. I've been Googling it or going on DuckDuckGo or whatever it is. They go, Jeff, this story is huge. Jeff, this is everywhere. Fox has covered it. New York Post has covered it. CNN, Los Angeles Times, USA Today. It's gone everywhere. The Associated Press. This is it, except here in Boston. You got papers in Britain. You got papers in Europe covering this, saying what the hell is going on in the cradle of American liberty, the cradle of the American Revolution. The mayor has now compiled an enemies list. Her staff was forced to admit it after a Freedom of Information Act request. And she's got business owners on the North End, the Mendoza brothers. They just want their restaurant to stay afloat, for God's sakes. And she's telling the police, go after every single one of them. You make me look bad. You show up with a placard. You show up with a bullhorn. Now you go on Twitter and you just tweet opposing the mayor. And she's now telling the Boston police, go and knock on the door. Take a look, see, investigate, see if you can find something, and start throwing people behind bars. Holy mackerel. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. I'm going to do it. This person that says email that said, Jeff, please, you got to read this on the air. I'm urging you. Here's what you, the Kuhner man, should do. Jeff, here is my 2 cents. I think you should formally on the air challenge Maoist Michelle Wu to come on the Kuhner Report to formally explain herself and her actions to the public. Personally, I think she's too much of a communist coward to do it, but the challenge should be made. I agree, Kevin. If no one else has the guts to do it, I will. Okay, now, This is going to make me numero uno on her on her enemies list. Now I'm number one on her enemies list. I guarantee it. But here it is. Here it is. To the mayor, I'm issuing now a public challenge. Don't hide behind your communications director. Don't hide behind the police commissioner. Don't hide behind the captain of the Boston Police Department. I am challenging you, if you have the guts, the courage, the basic decency and integrity, come on the Kuhner Report for 10 minutes and explain why you are compiling an enemies list and why you sent this enemy list of many of them ordinary citizens, why you felt the need to send them to the Boston Police Department to be investigated. And I want you to explain in particular, how is this different from Richard Nixon, which they were going to impeach him on this very issue? And how is this different from what they do in communist China, in communist Venezuela, in communist Cuba, or in Putin's Russia? In other words, how is this not the actions of an authoritarian fascist thug? Very simple. I want you to explain to the people of Boston, the people of Massachusetts, and the entire country why here, in the cradle of the American Revolution, you say people don't have a right to disagree with you, they don't have the right to protest you, they don't have the right to criticize you. Explain to me how this meshes with the very idea and notion of a free country and a free society. Explain that one to me, because I must have missed it in one of your social justice classes at Harvard. 617-266-6868 is the number. You phony, you fraud, you. Rob in Dedham. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Jeff. I'm on the list.
Rob?
I'm on the list, as you know, okay?
Yes, I saw your name, Rob. Congratulations, my friend. That's one hell of a badge of honor.
I'm only talking for myself, okay? And I think what you got to realize is this story goes far earlier than June 10th when this list was put out. The girls, who are not a political group, these girls have paid the price. They've been arrested many times. They're still in court. They won't adjudicate the cases because they know that this nonsense with the Wu Protection Act 1663 is a violation of our First Amendment free speech right. That was put together by her, protect her. Now, remember, the reason why the girls were over in Jamaica Plain.
Rob, can you do me a favor? Since you're on the enemies list, I'm so happy you called. We're going to come back, talk to Rob, ask him why he was on the enemies list, and have the police done anything to him so far. 617-266-6868 is the number. Michelle Wu now caught red-handed. She has an enemies list. She's compiled it. She sent it to the Boston Police Department in an email. Her administration now has been forced to admit this. They are now deliberately targeting and going after people like Rob in Dedham simply for the crime of criticizing or protesting Michelle Wu. Rob, I want to come right back and pick up where we left off. So now you're on the enemies list. I saw that. You were one of the people that were protesting at her home in Roslindale. She got that banned. So you can't protest outside of her home, even though, Mayor Walsh, Menino, other mayors had no problem with people protesting outside their home. So, Rob, let me ask you this. You say it escalated from that point on. Once she saw that people like you were protesting at her home, she then decided to really expand the crackdown. Please pick up where you left off, Rob.
Yeah, I can't stress this enough. I'm going to go back to you've got to put it in context. The girls, they know who they are. The girls had begun this over in Desi back in May. And it came over to City Hall. and the girls were protesting and protecting their kids. These girls did not know each other. They were not a political group at all. Correct. Matter of fact, Jeff, I heard what the promo on your station. I went from Hingham over to Malden. I got over there, and that's where I met them. They were on the front page of the Boston Herald trying to get into the Destiny building. So look, moving forward, okay? Then there was a couple different events happening. You know, the thing that the underlying, one of the things that's bothering me right now is the Boston police let us on their property when Michelle Wu did her speaking thing over at, I think, E1 over in Blue Hill Ave, okay? And they let us on the property. They let us protest on the Boston police property, and now they turned and they started gathering the list right about that time because the list came out June 10th, but we have lists from library people identifying us. There's all sorts of other stuff going on. So anyways, we're at her house for probably 10, 12 weeks. I was a videographer, so I shot a lot of the video, and the girls, again, all different races. She tried to use all different tactics, and the girls just never. They started with the bullhorns because Wu put her office at her house. That's why they ended up over there. So at 7:00, that's when the bullhorns would go, the cowbells, pots and pans, all sorts of different people there, Jeff. There wasn't just these, X number of girls, but the bottom line, which is terrible, these girls have paid a terrible price. They're still in court. The courts won't adjudicate these cases of the Wu Protection Act 1663. So me personally, I was running for Congress, as you know, and I didn't even know I was on the list until the Shana Catone thing in Boston when they try to can her at her meeting. So just because I'm number one, it doesn't mean I was the number one person of danger. But I have all the video, a ton of video that I haven't shown anybody. And the girls, you got to understand, Jeff. These girls were fighting for free speech, and you should help these people. Michelle Wu, I was the only one she ever spoke to when she came down the runway at her house. She'd come down, and she'd say, "Hello, Mr. Burke, how are you?" I said, "How'd you know my name?" And Shana Catone, I think, I'm jogging my memory, asked the Boston police right around April 1st, "Are you collecting a list of these people? How do you know all their names?" So this has happened. Incredible. The Boston police had amassed a list prior to April 1st. And then April 4th, we all got, I was the only one ever to get a written citation from the Wu Protection Act 1663. And there's the only one ever written, and everybody else, they just took the plates and they mailed them. We went into Roslindale about a month later. They called us the Rossi 5. We were the Rossi 5, Jeff. And we went in there, and the magistrate said, "This is crazy. This is a civil thing. What are you all people doing?" They dismissed it. And my problem was, as a protester, I was protesting, but I was also a videographer, and I had to separate the two things. I couldn't be both. So on April 4th, which is my birthday, I just shot video, and I got the second ticket. And a lot of the people, again, these are just regular people, folks. You got to understand that. And we're now foiling all this stuff. A couple of girls do some heavy lifting. I was on a list of the library, not the community. I just found that. Pictures of us. They had pictures of us already, and they already knew who we were. Boston police, they used us. They used us to do the dirty work over at the police station. This is my opinion. And then they turned on us right at the same time.
Oh, yeah, no, they set you up. No, Rob, there's no question. They set you up. They asked you to protest on their property so they could get all your names, get all your pictures, all your photo, pictures of your faces, your identities, probably took down the license plates on your cars. They were compiling a secret list for the mayor. There's no question. Rob, before I let you go, I've got to ask you, you said there's been citations, tickets. Have you felt any other harassment so far? In other words, are you feel like you're being maybe followed by the police, surveilled by the police? Is there anything else going on that you think maybe there's systematic harassment or persecution of you or people like you who oppose the mayor?
Or maybe a related thing. I can't prove it yet. I was down in a town down south, and I was doing some work, and I got a call from the police department asking me some questions. Says, "Oh, how'd you get my phone number?" I can't prove that yet. But seriously, Jeff, let the girls speak for themselves and everybody else on that list. and they're all digging now. They're putting it all together. Catherine Vitale running for Boston City Council at large, Sean Nelson, Padma Scott, they're all on the ballot, okay? They were all on the list. And the thing about Vitale was she got arrested 4 days after the list came out over in Charlestown when they tried to take her bullhorn away by that captain, DeKillo, whatever his name is, who then later became a superintendent of high-tech stuff in the Boston Police Department. This is all just together. They knew who we were. They were watching us. And again, I'm always speaking for me, okay? I'd have to talk to each and every one of these people that are on this list. I was shocked. I'm going, I'm on the list for what? And again, they were the police when they started coming over with the Wu Protection Act. Okay, they couldn't even explain it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Rob, as always, thank you so much for your call, and stay strong, brother. God bless you, my friend. Okay, so look, here, what you're seeing now is what the Democrats have done with the FBI, corrupted it, politicized it, co-opted it. Now you're seeing with the leadership of the Boston Police Department. That's what you're seeing. And now they're deliberately targeting and going after people. So you have this, Catherine Vitale is a candidate for Boston City Council. She's been criticizing Mayor Wu on the opiate epidemic, true. Homelessness, true. Poverty, true. Just the defunding of the police, rising crime, true. And now they're going after her? She's on the enemy's list? Okay, she just called in Shayna Catone. You know her, former Boston Police Department officer. She was forced out of the department because of her opposition to Mayor Wu. And for this, she has now lost her job. They've tried to destroy her career. She's been systematically harassed and persecuted. And guess what? Yup, she's on the mayor's enemies list. Shayna, thank you so much for calling into the Kuhner Report. I gotta ask you, were you surprised that you were on the list?
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for chronicling this saga, by the way, because it needs attention. I'm not surprised I'm on the list. I was surprised when I found the list. I mean, this is how arrogant these people are in the Michelle Wu administration, that they think that they can make lists of citizens, okay? And, I've been in possession of this list for many months. And, despite the way that the Wu administration would like to characterize myself and every other person who's been targeted by her for speaking out, I held on to this list because I wanted to ask the maker of the list, Dave Vittorini, who is Mayor Wu's senior advisor. I wanted to ask him himself, why did you make this list? And so we did on June 22nd. That's when this happened. This was exposed, and we put it online. And the media, didn't touch it. And thank God for Joe Battenfeld at the Herald. He came upon it and cracked this open. This is scary, Jeff. And this is what I know myself and many others who have been protesting have been warning about. Okay, we're sliding down a slippery slope that my grandfather fought. Okay, he's 99 years old. He's still alive. He fought in the Navy to protect our rights. And this is disgusting. And to hear Michelle Wu come out and say that the police asked for this list, no, okay, that's not how it works. She has her own dignitary protection. She has an entire squad, assigned to her that looks into this. We have I shouldn't say we anymore. The Boston Regional Intelligence Center also monitors things. That's a separate issue that the ACLU of Massachusetts and the National Lawyers Guild wrote in 2012 a scathing paper called Policing Dissent, okay? And it is the way that the Boston Police Department violated people's constitutional and civil rights in the name of safety. I put air quotes around this. Intelligence gathering. And these were anti-war veteran protesters. This is happening again. So this list was not made at the request of BPD. They have the resources. She has security assigned to her. They do their intel stuff on their own. This was Dave Vittorini at the behest of Mayor Wu. And we know that everything comes down from there because we received someone else on the list received a FOIA that we've been going through, where the people at City Hall start doing what Woo wants done. This is in relation to bullhorns and permitting. It says in the emails that they changed language in permits because that's what the fifth floor wanted. So they don't say her name, but they say it's her. This is all coming from the top down. She is not afraid. She is not scared.
Shayna, you're breaking up on us a little bit. The last I heard was you're saying she's unafraid. Obviously, she's not worried about any accountability, any pushback, that she's going to be held to account. Shayna, I gotta ask you, why you? Really, I'm not saying this, and please don't take this the wrong way, but look, you were simply a member of the Boston Police Department. You upheld your oath. You're an ordinary human being. You're not a threat to Michelle Wu. You've never threatened Michelle Wu. You don't want to hurt Michelle Wu. You're just an ordinary concerned citizen. Why has she put you on an enemies list? Why are you such a threat to this mayor?
Jeff, I fell off for a second back, and I think that you're asking why I'm on this list or why any of us are. I don't know, because all we are doing is exercising our rights peacefully, and that's what the Constitution guarantees, but that's what the public demands. The public does not deserve to have violent protesters come out. They deserve to have people come out peacefully, say what they have to, and petition their government regardless of what the topic is. There's no specifications on you can only complain or criticize or demand X, Y, and Z. People can come out and petition for, I don't know, something really silly. I don't even want to give you an example, and that's their right. Why am I on the list? Because I and others that are on the list advocate for people being able to exercise their rights. And I just want to circle back to the excuse that she's afraid and she was physically intimidated and all of these lies. There's not a single police report, Jeff, that documents any of these allegations. So she is repeatedly lying to the public. She is repeatedly lying to the media to make herself look good. This is a concerted effort from the Wu administration to crush dissent. And like I said, the ACLU wrote about this with BPD. It seems like they have not changed. This is not okay. And I got to tell you, it makes you afraid to know that you're...
Shayna, you're breaking up on us. Shayna, are you there?
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. We lost you. You said it makes you afraid, and then we lost you.
It makes you afraid. Makes me nervous to see, knowing what the police and the city are capable of. It makes you afraid to be on a list that's made by the government, that's made by the mayor. This is unacceptable. This is not, our country was the beacon of liberty, okay? And now we're a laughing stock because, rights are being violated with impunity by the mayor, who's a lawyer, trained at Harvard, no less. And this is what's happening. I mean, it shocks the conscience, and we need the media, and thank God for you again, Jeff, to cover this, because this is for us, the protesters, for society in general, for the kids inheriting this country in the future. They should be able to say how they feel and petition. And for people who come to this country seeking refuge and better life to escape persecution from their government, this is what they're coming into in Boston. It is shocking, it is scary, and it is on everyone's obligation.
Yeah, to stand up
and
to
that's
this.
City Council.
No, I hear you. Oh, I so hear you, Shayna. Shayna, I've got really two more questions, and I know you're very busy, so I'll let you go. But just very quickly, I don't want to put words in your mouth. This is how I'm describing her, but I'd like to get your take. Is Michelle Wu an authoritarian thug? When you look at her behavior, the enemies list, telling the Boston Police Department to go after you, to go after other critics, other people who protest her, is Michelle Wu now essentially a wannabe communist dictator?
Well, I know that she's listening in right now. So good morning, Michelle. It's nice to have you listen to us for once. We've been asking to speak with you for almost 2 years. She is a communist, authoritarian thug. She uses all the resources at her disposal to push, her agenda through, whether the public wants it or not. And we know that she is using these resources for bad, because after she has someone in the police department do something against protesters, there's Deputy Superintendent Eddie Crispin. He's now the commander of all of Area B. He was up at Internal Affairs and did all her dirty work for her against me. Lanita Cullinane is now a superintendent, up from a deputy superintendent. Captain Robert Ciccolo, who was a captain and who assaulted, I was there, I watched it, a protester, grabbed her wrist, bent it, snatched her megaphone out of her hand, and then gave it back after he threatened to arrest her and summons her. He did none of those things, by the way. I think he realized he had gone too far. He's now a superintendent. Also, Eddie Crispin is being sued for civil rights violations by a young man named Hunter Zion for being struck with a cruiser and having his teeth knocked out. That's Eddie Crispin, and that's who's running, Internal Affairs and now Area B. These are the promotions that happen for people who do the bidding of Mayor Wu, regardless of the rights of citizens that they violate. This is scary. It cannot be accepted. We need lawyers in this city and in this state to step up. I know they're afraid because of the regime, but you got to step up and you got to start representing these people being harmed by government. This cannot be tolerated. This is not the oath of office I took to protect and serve this community that I love, and I will continue doing that regardless of whether they took my job. And we need people to step up, because today it's us, tomorrow it's you, and then the day after that it could be your kids. Don't wait until then. Please stand with us, because we're doing the right thing. We're peaceful, we're passionate, and we're on the right side of this. Join us, because this can change for the better, okay? But we have to do it together.
Shayna, should Mayor Wu resign?
She should resign. She won't resign. And, again, just like that city council, that half of them should resign as well. It's a sickness that they have, where they think that they can violate the public trust and that they're above accountability, and they'll stay because of their ego. And that's why we need lawyers and watchdog groups to get involved here to keep the pressure on, because Michelle Wu likes to wait. She sees if things will pass, if the media will stop covering it when they actually do cover, and it's on to the next story. And how many scandals, Michelle Wu in a car to get somewhere quick, mother and little child struck, right? You have Kendra Lara driving. I can go on and on. Ricardo Arroyo with ethics violations and so many other things. And, and Michelle Wu writes an ordinance to stop us from protesting all of these things. Are we living in crazy land? Yeah, they need to resign, but they never will. So the outcry has to be so fierce. And Elizabeth Warren and Ayanna Pressley and all of these, people who back Wu will come in and try and run interference and fix, again, another thing that has happened. This is the most scandal-laden administration Boston has seen probably in modern times, because, of course, there was corruption back in the day. This is really akin to the 1970s, where the police department was being run by City Hall. That's scary. It's not supposed to be that way, separation of powers for a reason. But, no, none of them will resign. Boston will suffer, because it's not about Bostonians. It's about these politicians. Always has been. It's about their careers, upward movement, and, as you say, bleep the regular people. That's how they look at it. So
we've been talking with Shayna Catone. She's on Mayor Wu's enemies list. Shayna, if it's any consolation, I know it's really, really difficult. It's really unpleasant, and it's frightening. It's chilling to be on a government enemies list. Wear it like a badge of honor. What that shows to me, Shayna, is you've rung Mayor Wu's bell. Maoist Michelle is afraid of Shayna Catone. There's no question in my mind.
Continue exposing it, corruption. Boston First Responders United. We have a Twitter, Boston F as in Frank, R as in Romeo, U as in uniform. Please follow us if you want to stay up to date, because without Jeff Kuhner covering this and Joe Battenfeld, now it picked up, globally. The globalist has gone global. If you want to get the information, come to our Twitter, because we do post it. We're not afraid. We're going to keep speaking. So
God bless you. Shayna, keep up the good fight. Stay strong. Boston First Responders, Boston First Responders. Shayna, I got your back. Keep going. 617, and thank you again for calling in. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we know for sure now. I just want you to know that the mayor's office has been listening. So I know this for a fact. So I'm going to issue the challenge again. Does the mayor have the guts the basic decency and integrity to come on this show and explain herself and why people like Shayna Catone have been put on an enemies list. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Kelly Financial Services. Which is the greater threat to our democracy? A, white supremacists. B, Democrats with hit lists. What do you think is the greater threat to our democracy? White supremacy or Democrats with hit lists? You know where I stand. B, Democrats with hit lists. Exhibit A, Michelle Wu and her enemies list. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in Nancy ER. You can also vote via Twitter, our handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Okay, 617-266-6868 is the number. Lines are loaded. Catherine in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Catherine, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi,
this is
Catherine.
Catherine Vitale, candidate for Boston City Council at large. I'm number 2 on the list.
Why not number 1, Catherine?
I don't know. Rob got that spot. But, Jeff, there's a few important details about the list, okay?
Yes,
so
please.
we already know that Shayna Catone, the Boston police and the mayor's office conspired to fire her, right? We have that in documents. And then 4 people on the list have been arrested, okay? I'm one of them. I've been arrested 3 times in the past year. The list is being shared across police departments in the whole state. It's being shared with the Boston Region Intelligence Center. It's being shared with the FBI, or at least our names are. I don't know about that specific list because I know that there's other lists. We've gone and protested in different cities and towns, and they've approached us and spoken to us knowing our names already. Okay? And like I said, I've been arrested 3 times in the past year. 1 time was at City Hall, 1 time was in front of the mayor's house, and the other time was at the Massachusetts Department of Education. And they are targeting us also with DCF. They've tried to take my kids away twice in the past year.
That's disgusting. They're trying to take your children away from you?
Yes. And last year, they mentioned in the article, in Battenfeld's article, her spokesperson mentioned that we harassed and physically intimidated her in the Dorchester Day Parade last year. We've never harassed her. We are not intimidating her. We simply peacefully protest her, okay? And we are loud, but we are nonviolent. And we protested her in the Dorchester Day Parade last year. But the physical intimidation that happened in the Dorchester Day Parade last year was a priest, Father Conway, actually attacked one of the protesters. We had a man walking with us that had a drum, and the priest actually grabbed the protester and tried to take his drumsticks. And Boston Police Sergeant Bailey had to pull him off of the protester. That was the physical intimidation that happened at the Dorchester Day Parade. And then the EMS chief, Hooley, at the Dorchester Day Parade last year, leaned into one of the protesters' strollers to take a picture of her daughter. And then when we asked him about that at a later date, he said that he took a picture of her daughter because he's a mandated reporter, and he was contemplating whether or not to report that woman to DCF for having her daughter with her at a parade.
Unbelievable.
So we're being targeted in many ways. I actually, I've been unemployed for a couple years now, and, I'm running my campaign right now. But last year I had a job for a couple months. I went back to work, Jeff, and for the last 3 weeks of my employment before my DCF case opened and I had to quit my job, there was somebody sitting at my job watching me, I think a private investigator, for 3 weeks. They are trying to intimidate us. They're doing everything that they can to keep us from speaking out and to silence us.
Catherine, I guess this is the $64,000 question. What is Mayor Michelle Wu afraid of? What is Maoist Michelle afraid of?
Afraid of us empowering other people to speak up.
And
that's simply it.
What is the one issue that really, because she's very nervous about you and these protests. You've clearly rung her bell. You've clearly frightened her. You've exposed her weak underbelly or soft underbelly. Is it how draconian her mandates were and the lockdowns? Is it the homelessness, the fentanyl, the opiate epidemic? What is she so afraid of?
Yeah, the reason why we started protesting her in December 2021 was because they were going to fire thousands of Boston City workers over those mandates. And they say that you can get exemptions, but they deny the exemptions, medical and religious. So it's all just for show. And had we not been so vocal about it, they probably would have, because we saw tons of state workers.
Yeah. No, Catherine, we're talking with Catherine Vitale. I think you hit the nail on the head. She's power mad, and now she wants to crush all of her political enemies. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so now you've heard from three people who are on Mayor Wu's Maoist Michelle is enemies list. You heard from Rob Burke, you heard from Shana Catone, and now from just recently Catherine Vitale. And all of them are saying they have been systematically harassed. Shana Catone has been fired. They've tried to destroy her career. They've been systematically persecuting and harassing her. Catherine Vitale, they are threatening. In fact, they've tried 2 times to take away her children, to use DCF to take away her kids. Rob has been getting fine after fine after fine. Now, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So you want to know what kind of a fascist thug or a communist thug we have sitting as the mayor of Boston. It's not going to stop. She's co-opted the entire leadership of the Boston Police Department. She's rewarding hacks. You do her dirty work, you get promoted. And now she's deliberately targeting and going after anyone who dares to protest her or even criticize or speak out against her on social media. So what they're trying to do, let's be clear, is they're trying, as one of them in a text message said to me, Jeff, they ruled by fear throughout the pandemic. They want to continue to rule by fear and intimidation. And what you're seeing in Boston is a microcosm of the Biden regime. It's what they're doing to this country nationally. And they're using the FBI, the DOJ, and law enforcement to do it. So they're attacking our freedoms on the national level and now on the local level. 617-266-6868. Joe in Westwood. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Shana kind of stole some of my thunder there as far as the higher ups with the police department. You get guys up there that are superintendents that jump from sergeants to superintendents, so they're beholden to the mayor for those positions, because if they don't do her dirty work, they're not going to stay in that position. I'm a little disappointed in Cox because he's got a contract. You know, if she's twisting his arm to do something he doesn't want to do, just come and tell him. Say, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And then if she fires him, they're going to pay out his contract. I have a friend of mine who met Mayor Wu's father-in-law. I believe he's from New York City. He's an attorney, and he's conservative. He's not a big fan of his daughter-in-law. He says she doesn't believe half the things that she professes and mandates. She's just doing it because this is where she's she's taking her orders from Washington, D.C., Elizabeth Warren, and the rest. He's not a big fan. I can tell you that much. But, again, she's a disgrace. The things that she's done, I mean, she talks about, the homeless and all that. The human trafficking that's going on there, the prostitution, there's just so much more than just the drug use down there. She's just a disgrace. And she ran on that she was going to fix it. And she's only made it worse. So I said my piece.
Well, Joe, you're dead on. And Joe, thank you for your call, because you got the courage to say what many people are thinking. But increasingly now they're afraid to say it, because this mayor is a thug. Let's make no mistake about it. Wannabe dictator thug. That's what she is. Joe, thank you so much for that call. Look, she ran on cleaning up the homeless situation. It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. And Joe is completely right. Like in San Francisco, like in New York, like in Chicago, like in L.A., like in most Democrat-run cities. In Boston, especially under her leadership, homelessness has exploded. Drug use, fentanyl. I mean, they're openly, on Mass and Cass, they're openly shooting up. They're openly shooting up. Public urination, public defecation, prostitution. And he's completely right. Many of them illegal aliens, trafficked, human trafficked. It's sexual slavery. What Sound of Freedom talks about, right into Boston. And she has deliberately turned a blind eye. She has done nothing. Nothing. Yet and this is what I don't get for some of these top people in the police department. She's defunded the police. She's tied the hands of the police. She's defunded the police. Why would you want to protect this woman, of all people? I mean, I know you have a cushy job, and many of you have been promoted way beyond your abilities. I understand that. But after a certain point, don't you say to yourself, it's just not worth it? Selling my soul is just not worth it? Boston is being driven into the ground under her leadership. And she knows it, and her backers know it. And look, let's be honest. They're grooming her. This is a stepping stone. They're grooming her to run for Congress. They're grooming her to eventually run for the Senate. She's one of them. She's a woke liberal who went to Harvard. She's the right minority. That's all this is about. She's a female. She's of Asian descent. She's a moonbat. She checks all the right boxes. So they're just grooming her to be a stepping stone. They want her to be another AOC, another Ilhan Omar, another Ayanna Pressley, another Elizabeth Warren. That's what this is all about. And the people of Boston, you're just collateral damage. Now, to me, this is the story. Yes, Democrats have been doing this. They've been running cities into the ground since the 1960s. They've been doing it now for 50, 60 years. What is different now about Wu and about this new crop of Democrats and about the Biden regime is the sheer intolerance. It's the authoritarianism. It's the communism. It's the fascism. That's where I go, whoa, 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 whoa. We're not just talking about sheer incompetence, bribery, corruption, whatever, allowing public filth and disorder and no. We're not talking that, coddling criminals. Now, you oppose us, we will crush you. We're going to put you on it. We're going to take poor Catherine Vitale. The woman is just running for Boston City Council. She wants to make Boston a better place to live. And because she criticizes the mayor, she sicks DCF and says, I'm going to take your 2 children away from you. So you're going to take my children away from me because I oppose the mayor? Like, what is this, communist China? Or, you know what? You're Shana Catone. You're going to lose your job. Why? So people are losing their jobs, potentially losing their children. They're threatening their children. They're losing their careers. They're being secretly spied on and surveilled by the police. They show up at other rallies and the information is being shared with the FBI. And you show up, the police show up and they already know your name. And you're like, how do you know my name? Ding, 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 hello? Who gave you my phone number? They are setting up a surveillance police state. Now, look, so far that we know of, and I don't believe it's limited to this. I don't believe it. It's a limited enemies list. I'm telling you, they're spying on us at the national level, at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level. And this email is the tip of the iceberg. I want to know what they have on me. I'd love to see that file. I want to know what they have on many of you in the audience. Don't think you're not being surveilled. Don't think for a second that these thugs are just stopping with Shayna Catone and Catherine Vitale and Rob Burke. And now poor Paul Craney, the guy from Mass Fiscal Alliance. He doesn't even show up at protests. He just writes position papers. He runs a think tank, for God's sakes. And on Twitter, he tweets, Michelle Wu, you're wrong on this, on Twitter. And now they're gunning for him. They're going to, if they're not already coming after you, they will come after you. Take it to the bank. 617-266-6868 is the number. Eddie in Revere. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Kuhner, it's good to always know you're out there trying to get rid of that liberal bull. But one thing I want to get out of the way is that your poll is wrong. We don't have a democracy. We've never had a democracy. So anytime I hear that, it just tells me that we've already gone down the wrong path and everybody believes this democracy.
Oh, you're right. We have a republic. No, you're right. I'm going to come right back to Eddie in Revere. Okay, let's go right back to Eddie in Revere. Eddie, you were saying we're not a democracy. We're a republic. I completely agree. Eddie, on the larger point of a hit list, an enemies list, that Mayor Michelle Wu, Maoist Michelle as I call her, has now been caught. She sent it to the police. She's been now targeting, going after her political opponents. Catherine Vitale, this poor woman with several children, running for Boston City Council, big critic of Mayor Wu, now says that DCF has tried to take her children away from her. Shayna Catone fired from her job as a Boston police officer. Do you now feel that we have a wannabe dictator as the mayor of Boston? Is that what it's now come down to?
It's not a wannabe. She is acting and doing everything a dictator does. So there's no denying it. That is communism at its best. What I call these people too are constitution deniers. So they deny the Constitution that we know blood was shed for in getting us our liberties. And these communists are taking it all away. And we have been allowing it because we keep saying we're in a democracy. So we need to fight that kind of thinking and remember that we are free people made by God, and we will not stand for communists taking our rights away.
Amen. Oh, Eddie, very well said. Very well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Eddie, thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. I touched on it earlier, but I got to put this log on the fire again. What is stunning, and I'm getting inundated with text messages saying, Jeff, I thought maybe you were slightly dramatizing for effect or maybe slightly exaggerating for effect. But really, you're right. No media local coverage outside of the Herald and the Boston Broadside. Outside of those two, and now obviously your show driving it all morning, nothing. Nothing. Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 25, WGBH, NPR. Run down the whole list, the Boston Globe. And yet they go, but you punch in Michelle Wu, enemies list, and the national media, it's a massive story. Never mind the international media, the British media is covering this. So I've got to ask all of you, how the hell do you have a massive political scandal that in any other sane time, in any other saner era, would have brought the mayor of Boston down? I mean, this would have been over. And the local media isn't even covering it. That's how much in the tank they are for the Democrats and for Maoist Michelle. I mean, how do they get away with this? 617. I mean, really, have they no shame? No professional pride whatsoever? No self-respect? 617-266-6868 is the number. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure.
You know, this Michelle Wu, a couple of people demonstrate peaceably with signs or whatever. How about what was done to the Supreme Court justices at their homes, to their neighbors, constant screaming, drums, disrupting the whole lifestyle of all those people? And they did nothing to those people.
Oh, you're dead on. Oh, and the difference is this. Because they're the Supreme Court, right? They're not an elected official. They're appointed for life, and they sit on the highest court in the land. Well, there are very strict laws in place. And we're not the only ones. Most, democracies, free countries, whatever you want to call them, most free countries around the world have the exact same laws, which is you don't want to be able to intimidate, frighten, bully, scare members of the Supreme Court because then they can't rule independently. So that's why we have federal laws on the books, like many other countries do, which say, no, you can't protest in front of the house of, say, Brett Kavanaugh. Never mind, forget protesting. Hanging nooses, threatening to kill him and his family, and doing it day after day after day after day after day. So these liberals commit crime after crime. You had Chuck Schumer on the steps of the Senate warning Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, saying, you overturn Roe v. Wade, you're going to reap the whirlwind. You won't know what hit you. Openly, physically threatening to go after and unleashing the mob to go after these two justices. And nothing. Nothing. No consequences. Even though it's clearly a violation of the law. And yet, peaceful, civil protests of a mayor who's been a disaster. And she's ordering the police to intimidate them, to fire them, to take their children away from them, to destroy them, to secretly spy and surveil them, to put them on some enemies list and say, destroy them, do what you got to do. And the Democrats, they're proud of this? This is how they roll now? You know, what I find amazing, Bob, if I had a nickel for every time liberals, Democrats, those in the liberal media, those in the local liberal media, use the term authoritarian or fascist to describe Trump or me or Trump supporters or MAGA voters, I would be a gazillionaire. Yet the only authoritarians and the only fascists that I see are them. It's a classic case of projection. You call your enemies what you really are. You say they're doing what you're really doing. And Bob, I got to ask you, did you ever think you would live to see the day in Boston, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the American Revolution, man, the Boston Tea Party, that a mayor would be so confident, so arrogant, such a political thug, that not only do they admit they have an enemies list, they put it in an email. And they send it to the top people, the captain of the Boston Police Department, and they go, here's the list. Go get them. Go get them. This is the Soviet Union. Bob, I can't. And that the media is deliberately silent. For the most part. There's exceptions. But for the most part, the media, we don't want the peasants to know. Because if the peasants know, they're going to demand that she resign. So let's all play stupid. Bob, did you ever think you would see this?
Didn't. Can I add something?
Yes, Bob.
You know, I'll never understand that. I've been saying this since day one. She strolled in here from Chicago. Am I correct?
Yes.
And everybody fell in love with her, and I want to know why.
Well, she was the flavor of the month. It's like Ayanna Pressley. I don't know what it is. This is part of the Chicago machine that Obama has been cultivating with Susan Rice, with Valerie Jarrett, with David Axelrod. And so they start in Chicago. That's their epicenter. And then they shift them out to big cities across the country. And Boston in particular. You have all these carpetbaggers that come from Chicago, and they groom them to run and rule Boston and Massachusetts. Ayanna Pressley's another one. And what I find incredible is they don't care about our city and they don't care about our state. And they're even open about it. Like when you really push them, they go, nah, this is just a stepping stone. Nah, I'm on to bigger and better things. Because they have one party rule, because it's such a deep blue state, they're like, look, we need to get some people in the upper echelons of Congress, into the Senate, into governorships, to then put them into the cabinet, to run them as presidential candidates. So where can we go that it'll be guaranteed, no matter where they come from, what they stand for, they'll win? Massachusetts. So that's why they keep sending them here. And California, and there's a couple of other places. But, so no, the thing about her is she's of Asian descent. They have a problem with Asian votes. The Asian vote is increasingly turning Republican, turning MAGA, turning Trump. So what do you got to do? You got to groom someone of Asian descent who's also a woman and went to Harvard and is a hardcore moonbat. Okay. They think they have the next Elizabeth Warren. Except she's not a phony Asian. She's a real Asian, unlike Warren, who was a phony Indian. So that's why they swooned all over her. And then when you realize what a disaster this woman has been, really, please, Bob, don't take my word for it. And this is Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 10. They covered her when she ran for mayor. Her central campaign promise was, I will clean up Mass and Cass. For people listening across the country, this big intersection in Boston, where it's just homelessness, drugs, filth, prostitution. Think San Francisco, that's Mass and Cass. Okay, it's a couple miles long, whatever it is. And she said, I'm going to clean up, the needles on the sidewalk and the discarded needles. She goes, I'm going to just clean all of that up. I'll take care of it. It's gotten worse. Objectively, it's gotten worse. And Bob, overall, I don't know if you've noticed, every major American city in the last 3 years under Biden, under Democrat control, has declined. It has gotten significantly worse. Crime is out of control. Illegal immigration is out of control. Homelessness is out of control. Drug use, drug paraphernalia is out of control. And they're sending $125 billion to Ukraine. That's our priority. While you've got people on Mass and Cass shooting up, and peeing and defecating right there on the sidewalk. Homeless people as far as you can see. And when a lot of these people on that list are not conservatives, some are. Many of them are liberals. Some of them are community activists who are just saying, we're trying to hold you to the promises that you made. And her response is, put them down on a list, a hit list. Go to the police and say, either you throw them in jail, destroy their career, take away their livelihood, take away their children. Hey, that's how they do it in communist China. That's how we're going to do it here.
Bicycle lanes.
Yeah, and bicycle lanes. No, you're right. That's the only thing I've noticed in the last couple of years in Boston. More bicycle lanes. That's it. That's her big solution to everything. Oh, and defund the police. And Bob, how's that worked out for everybody, huh? Now, in places like Dorchester, you're seeing shootings in the day. In broad daylight, people are getting, never mind at night now. Forget night. In broad daylight, boom, boom, boom. People are dropping like flies. But no. Hey, no. Now, again, her people I know are listening. We got to put them on an enemies list. How dare he say that? You can't say the truth. Tucker Carlson over the weekend held 2 summits, one in Florida, one in Iowa. By the way, he did a magnificent job grilling presidential candidates. The long and short of it is, he said, in America, you don't get punished for lying. In fact, the more you lie, look at Joe Biden, the more rewarded you get. In America today, you get punished for telling the truth. Shana Catone told the truth. Catherine Vitale told the truth. Rob Burke told the truth. All of these people criticizing Mayor Wu, they're just telling the truth. That's it. That's it. And for telling the truth, you end up on an enemies list. My grandfather, may God rest his soul, is rolling in his grave. He's rolling in his grave. Michelle in Florida. Thanks for holding, Michelle, and welcome.
Jeff, I really appreciate you speaking on this subject. I'm one of the names on the public enemy list. I lived in Massachusetts my entire life. I have very, very personal relationships in Boston, although I wasn't living there. I was living 10 minutes outside of the city. And after however long it was protesting, I had to flee the state with my kids and husband because it was just too much to bear. I also I was arrested at the State House 11 days after Mayor Wu publicly said on television that people were going to start being held accountable for not wearing masks. And when that happened, at least 6 people contacted DCF like a witch hunt, and it just kept getting scarier and scarier.
Michelle, did they try to take away your children as well?
Yes, yeah. As I said, there was at least six reports, and some estranged family members of mine tried to petition guardianship specifically because of the media campaign that had occurred from the Boston Public Library. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but in February 2022, I mean, it's been so long now, but at that time, I and some other moms, because we're just moms, we went to the Boston Public Library to utilize the library, and we were villainized in the media and accused of being racist and basically perverts for being inside the children's room. At the same time, some other person poured gasoline on a Maya Angelou statue. They were completely separate incidents, but that didn't stop a Boston Globe reporter from inferring and accusing us of being guilty of that, despite that they had all the evidence that said otherwise. So these estranged family members who are apparently complying to the state as well use that as ammunition to try and steal my children from me.
That's disgusting.
It's been very painful. And just on Friday, I received a almost 3,400 page FOIA dump that shows very clearly that the city and the state have been surveilling me with pictures, and the FBI and BRIC, which is the Boston Regional Intelligence Center. And it makes my hair stand up on my arms.
I mean, this is like the Stasi. No, really. They watch you, they follow you, they monitor you, they take pictures of you, they videotape you, they threaten to take away your children. I mean, this is unbelievable. For what? In America, you're not punished for lying. You're punished for telling the truth. Michelle, are you living permanently now in Florida? Have you just left Mass, or do you still have some ties here?
I had to move permanently to Florida, and there have been financial ramifications because of that. However, I'm still active on Boss Polly Twitter. If you can look up my handle, I have the emails listed. So if anybody would like to look at that, they can look at Effendi Michelle. I have the emails for people to read. I also want to add that everything that they called me is just not true. I was a community activist. I campaigned for Bernie and Hillary. My husband is a Muslim immigrant and of Asian descent. So all this suggestion that I'm attacking the mayor because she's an Asian woman, it's just all false. It's all false.
Well, God bless you. Michelle, history has vindicated you. You were on the right side of history. When everyone else abdicated their duties, their responsibilities to uphold freedom and the Constitution, you didn't. And I believe in their eyes, in Michelle Wu's eyes, that was your real crime. That was your real crime. Because I'm telling you, she is a communist, fascist thug. Michelle, thank you so much for calling. Hold your head up high. You were right. They were wrong. More with your calls. Reaction next. 617-266-6868 is the number. Is it Aubrey or Audrey? Aubrey in Braintree. I just wanted to make sure. Aubrey in Braintree, thanks for holding and welcome.
You, Jeff, for your fresh perspective. If I had a nickel for every time I was called Audrey, I'd be rich right now. But that's another story. Jeff, I don't think many people know about their rights in the Commonwealth and what's public record and what is not. Each time one's driving record, probation record, or any other state-held information is accessed, that inquiry gets recorded by an agency called the Massachusetts Department of Criminal Justice Information Services. And that inquiry into you is public record. So if Michelle Wu did an inquiry on you, that would show that the police department did an inquiry, what date, what time, and what officer signed on. Every good American should check to see who is checking on them. It's real easy. Call 617-660-4600 or look them up online. There's a form to fill out. They have 10 days to get back to you for your records inquiry. Now, there's a big question about, let's say, the city councilor who thinks she's above the law and can drive without a license. If an officer pulled her over during the year she was driving allegedly without a license, that inquiry would be recorded. Now, there's a big question whether that's public record or not, but if an officer pulled her over and didn't tow her, that officer should lose his job or her job.
Oh, I'm with you all the way. I mean, Aubrey, I'm with you all the way. Aubrey, what do you make of the enemies list? And that Michelle Wu's people admit they have one. They're not even hiding it. If they've handed it over to the police and basically go get them. You criticize the mayor or protest the mayor or embarrass the mayor in any way, Aubrey, if you have children, DCF will go after him. If you have a public job, you'll be in the public sector. They'll fire you. They'll monitor you, spy on you, surveil you, send your name to the FBI. You'll be systematically harassed. What do you make of that, Aubrey?
Jeff, if you haven't realized, and your listeners have not realized by now, every single element of our government has been weaponized to silence victims. I'm a living proof of it, Jeff. I won't get into the specific details, but on March 26th of 2019, my front door of my Quincy, Massachusetts house was kicked down by 3 Quincy police officers, and I was dragged out. 2 hours prior to that, sir, I had filed a criminal report against a sitting Massachusetts judge. I'm a 23-year veteran of journalism. I never thought our state would be this corrupt.
That's incredible. Wow. Aubrey, do you think it has to get worse before it gets better? Or do you think people are going to start to say enough is enough? There are going to be more protests, more pushback, more people saying we want the mayor to resign, that this regime of thuggery and really tyranny, as you put it, of thuggery, weaponization, and tyranny, that it has to come to an end. If we continue down this road, we're going to lose all our freedoms.
To take back our state and stop electing career politicians who weaponize the system. Let's think about this. Elizabeth Warren engaged in a criminal conspiracy while she was at Harvard. She engaged in a criminal conspiracy with a now sitting Supreme Court justice who signed off on a form to the Department of Education that Elizabeth Warren was a minority. Now, Kagan stopped defrauding the government, which is what it's called, 2 years into her tenureship as the head of Harvard Law, because she went to Larry Summers and allegedly said, I don't want to participate in this because she's lying. Can you imagine people would elect a criminal like Elizabeth Warren? People are stupid.
Oh, drop the mic. Oh, Aubrey, have you called before?
No, sir. I'm a victim of multiple crimes, and I'm getting sick of the Department of Justice dragging its feet. They've launched a massive federal investigation into the Commonwealth. I think that's a direct result of why Charlie Baker didn't run. And I secretly believe Maura Healey has been just like DeLeo and an unindicted co-conspirator, but she's a horrible person. She took away my right, your right, to report online public corruption. She took that right off her website for 3 years. Certified mail was not returned. This is the type of governor we have, a reprobate. And
yeah,
when
a thug, another thug, another communist thug.
When her wife found out that she got the judgeship because of nefarious dealings, the wife kicked her to the curb. Think about it. We have a state police agency where cops sleep on the job right in front of you. What is wrong with people?
Aubrey, please don't be a stranger. Call again. Call again. Hit the nail right on the head. I mean, the corruption in this state is, in the country, in the federal government, in the Biden regime, is massive. But in this state, holy shamoly. Holy shamoly. No, and he's completely right, by the way. Elizabeth Warren deliberately lied. She claimed to be a Native American Indian. She knew she wasn't. She knew, her brother knew, her family knew, everybody knew, Harvard knew, and that was a crime. It was fraud. She perpetrated a massive fraud. And yet the idiots in this state still voted for her. And by the way, it was racist. She claimed, if you remember her argument, she said, well, how am I an Indian? Look at the high cheekbones. What? Liberalism is a mental disorder, and it's being exposed for everyone to see. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right. Are you on Michelle Wu's enemies list? And what do you make of the fact now that you've got Democrats who are putting out hit lists on their political opponents. Is this the future of the Democratic Party? I look at Biden, I look at the FBI, I look at so many now of these leading Democrats who've embraced censorship, suppression. You look at them now weaponizing the government to go after their political opponents. And I'm telling you, this is the future. In many ways, it's the present, but it's definitely going to be our future if we don't stop this and stop it now. Agree, disagree? Roman in Boston. Thanks for holding, Roman, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Roman.
I have a couple things. The superintendents of Boston, they're all political hacks. They're going to do exactly as the mayor tells them to do. They're not real cops. What I want to know is, and what Aubrey brought up, and I want to touch on that a little bit, is we have to go into the Criminal Justice Information Service to attain information on a party. So if you're doing a criminal investigation, then you need to go into this system. Okay, these are illegal investigations. It's not warranted. And every officer's name is stamped and time stamped on that computer saying that they ran these people's names, the protesters. I want to know where Post is, the Peace Officer Standards Commission, because they're all over every cop, going up their butts with microscopes on this, because this is highly illegal. In 1971, Nixon started his opponents list. And then in 2018, Donald Trump got blasted for having a so-called opponents list. But it's common practice for the Democrats now. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. Michelle Wu also helped push a law through. The protesters can't protest in front of her house. So that's not good enough, but yet they protested in front of Baker's house incessantly every single day and every single night. I just don't understand how this is okay with the rank and file police, because it wouldn't be okay with me. If an upper echelon, if top brass came to me and said, do this, if they made me do it, it would be on my report, per Captain so-and-so, this arrest was made under protest. And I've done that before in the past. I don't understand how the police are actually allowing this. What is going on with the Boston Police Department? Brothers and sisters, wake up.
Well, I got to ask you, this is the $64,000 question, Roman. Why do you think this is happening under the Boston Police Department? Are they afraid for their jobs? Are they afraid for their careers? Is this more corruption? Or are we now living under growing fear and intimidation? Because, Roman, one of the things I want to point out is the text line. I'm getting a lot of people saying, Jeff, honestly, it's gotten to the point now, I'm afraid. I don't criticize Biden. I don't criticize Michelle Wu. I don't criticize, a whole host of figures. Christopher Wray, FBI director, Merrick Garland, because I know that I will be retaliated against. So I don't say anything on social media. I don't protest. I don't criticize. I keep my mouth shut. I keep my criticisms to myself. Are we starting to see now that fear and intimidation works? And many, even ordinary rank and file police are like, if I say no, they're going to come after me and my family and make life miserable. So forget it. I might as well just do what they want me to do and they'll leave me alone.
Right, Jeff. Well, you're absolutely right. It has people running terribly scared. There's an old saying, the tree of liberty has to be watered by the blood of patriots occasionally. And that's gone. That's not going to happen. People are terrified as to what this government is doing. And it started before that, but it really, the test was COVID. That was it. How much can we make the public capitulate and make them terrified and afraid? And as far as the police, yeah, you got people worried about their pensions, everything they've ever worked for, their families, and all that. And they're staying off social media. They're not because they're afraid of retaliation. And it's absolutely sickening in this country that this is happening, that you can't speak your mind. You can't say what you want to say or how you feel. You have to just toe the line. And plus, don't forget, the Democrats have been have indoctrination centers for 12 years with these kids. So now these kids are going into college, 4 more years of indoctrination on the Democratic plantation, and they're believing all of this stuff that is being forced down their throat. So there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty with a lot of police and a lot of people in general. There's no doubt, because you will be retaliated against. Those are my thoughts on that. People are just terrified.
Roman, thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate it. Roman, thank you again for that call. You will be retaliated against. So here you have a police officer openly saying, you go up against Mayor Wu or you don't do her bidding, they'll come after you. Period. Full stop. So, I mean, I don't know how much clearer people can make it. This woman is a political gangster. Maoist Michelle. That's what she is. And so are the people around her. Now, look, here's 617. I don't want to read these. These are very unpleasant texts. But, look, this is to show you the mentality of those on the left. Okay, the Bills in Sudbury, the Bens in North Andover, the Chris in Gloucester, 617. Quote, Jeff. No, sorry, not even Jeff. Kookman. That's their new nickname. They think it's funny. Kookman. How dare you criticize our mayor? Now we're going to put you on the enemies list. We're coming for you. Oh, blank off. Like, seriously, you think this scares me? You think I'm impressed by this? Go ahead. Go put me on the enemies list. I dare you. I dare you. Put me on that enemies list. Believe me. I'm going to take this national. I'll take it international. By the time I'm done, Mayor Wu is going to rue the day that she and her people tried to destroy me in my career. Wait a minute, you can't handle a little criticism from a talk radio host? No, that's too much for you thugs? For you totalitarian communist thugs? You phonies, you fraud, you. And by the way, they're the ones, tolerance, diversity, compassion. There's no compassion, no respect for intellectual diversity, and there's certainly no tolerance. So there they are. Our mayor? How dare you criticize our mayor? And we're going to make you pay? We're going to put you on the enemies list? That's the radical left for you in a nutshell. 617-266-6868. Samantha in Carver. Thanks for holding, Samantha, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm on the list also. There's 15 of us, and it's been like a nonstop barrage of attacks for all of us. I think there's maybe 5 of us that have had DCF weaponized against us, and it's been ongoing. But I think the most egregious thing that's happened to my family is that I was at work one day, and I got a call from my son that DCF was at his school, and that they had removed him from his class. So I rushed over to pick up my other children from their schools because we didn't know what was going on, and ran over and got him, dismissed him, brought him home, and a couple hours later they showed up at my house unannounced, which I asked them, what is the emergency that allowed you to get into my kid's school? Like, there must be an emergency. What exactly happened? And they said, well, there was a report made at your children's doctor's office the other day when you were there. And I'm like thinking, what on earth is happening right now? So they wouldn't give me any details of what the report was, and I had to request it. And when they sent it to me about 20 days later, the report was a page and a half long and stated that I had held the doctor's office hostage, and that there were children and families hiding under things, that they were afraid for their life and their safety. They couldn't get to the phone to call the police. because I was holding them hostage. Meanwhile, there's no police record of anything. Nothing happened.
Sorry,
So
Samantha, I just want to make sure I get this story straight. They were claiming that you were holding your children under hostage, or just children at the doctor's office under hostage?
The whole doctor's office. That the secretary was so afraid that she was hiding under the desk. Meanwhile, I had gone in to request some records from my children, so I knocked at the window and they opened it. We had a conversation, maybe about 4 minutes. They ended up getting the director on the phone because they needed her permission to give me what I was asking for. So I had stepped outside to take a phone call. I think the director and I were on the phone for 11 minutes. In the parking lot. This DCF report claimed that I was there for over 3 hours, that I was screaming, that I refused to leave, that the office went into lockdown, that people were hiding under their desks, that people couldn't get their children out of the building because the office was in lockdown. And then when it eventually...
Samantha, please hang on. Oh, I'm up against a hard break. Please hang on. So they lied. They lied. Okay, let's go right back to Samantha in Carver. So Samantha, they tried to go after your children. They took your, DCF went to the school where your son is, took him out of the classroom. You went and picked up your other children, and they libeled you. They lied, claimed that you were trying to hold other children at a doctor's office hostage, and that you threatened people, so much so that the secretary had to hide underneath her desk, and they had to put the whole place in lockdown. Samantha, did DCF end up taking away your children?
No, I was able to prove that the whole thing hadn't happened. So I ended up calling the director that I had spoken to that day at the doctor's office and asked her if she had been, intimidated by our conversation. And she was completely blown away. She had no idea that the report had been made. She said that any reports that were made had to be made in writing, and that they would have record of that. She said that absolutely not, that it was actually a therapy office. And she said that, this is like, people being upset are things that she deals with a lot, but she didn't think that I had been upset. But it was like, that's not something, like, somebody being upset wasn't something that they would have reported, but that none of what was being alleged had occurred. So I actually there were 3 people named in the report who had supposedly given the report. I contacted those people, and 2 of them said, thank you for even letting me know that this report exists, because I didn't work that day. They weren't even in the building to make a report. They weren't there at all.
So you were framed. No, you were framed. There's no question. You were framed. You were smeared and you were framed. They fabricated a case against you to try to take away your children because you dared to criticize and protest the mayor. I mean, this is beyond outrageous. Literally, these are Gestapo, KGB, Stasi tactics. This woman's out of control. Her team is out of control. Samantha, thank you so much for that call. Beyond outrageous. 6-1. And I said this to Sandy off air, and I got to say it again. When you hear stories like this, and they're just coming out now, one after another. And by the way, where is the media? Look how many people are calling this show. You can't call them up and put them on the record. I know why. Because they'll bury your mayor. That's why. So your job is to be their Praetorian Guard, to protect them. Now, just very quickly, when you hear a story like this, where reports are fabricated, lies are made, a people's reputation utterly destroyed, I'm sorry, but the overall effect is, when you hear about, I don't know, an FBI raid or whatever, you go, well, is it really true, everything they're accusing that person? Because they've made up now so many cases against dissidents, critics, opponents, that now you're like, oh, so are they just making stuff up to justify these repressive tactics? 617-266-6868. When you start trying to take away people's children, you are one sick, sick puppy. John in Lowell. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Jeff, this is nothing new. Shortly after the Justina Pelletier rally, I opened up 2 days later. I'm working in my boat. I look up and there's 2 black state SUVs sitting right on the road. Well, Jeff, fear and intimidation only work if you allow it. What did I do, Jeff? I jumped out of the boat, ran towards them. What did they do? They took off as fast as they could, Jeff. What happened to no bullying, Jeff? We shouldn't be bullying. This is exactly what they're doing. And if you push back, the bullying will stop. But it's going to take a lot of people to push back, Jeff.
John, why is the media dead silent on this? What's outside of the Herald again and the Boston Broadside, a few exceptions, but why is the media so silent? What's your theory?
Jeff, there is no media, okay? Listen, they're infiltrated too. They're infiltrated. What I don't understand, Jeff, is how they think this is going to provide a better future for their children and their children's children. That's the part that gets me, Jeff. Like they think they're going to get something. They're going to get something. Historically, it's a bullet up against a wall because they're the first to go.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. What kind of future are they paving the way for their children and their grandchildren by empowering these monsters? You're hell. You're right. They're giving them hell. John, thank you very much for that call. This is from 781. Jeff, maybe the media is also afraid of mayoral retaliation. I think they're just cowards. But are they not covering? But why are they not covering a story like this? Well, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe they're afraid of the mayor sicking the police on them. I mean, that's, in other words, you better not cover this because if you do, we're going to, hey, ask them. You want DCF barreling down you? You want to lose your job? You want to lose your career? You want the police surveilling you and spying on you and videotaping you? So back off and we do what we got to do. Jimmy in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
Come on, Jeff. I've been in Rome in like 20 years in the past thinking the Criminal System History Board does have 10 days. Well, I've been waiting 9 years from legal inquiries done. I was told initially it was a Suffolk County DA, Boston Police, and the staff attorney, Ms. Coloris, for 9 years. I was still investigating. But this is nothing new. I mean, Michelle Wu is mild compared to, the Menino administration. That's where this all really started. And I think she really answers to others because the corruption is like seamless and incestuous across a county state. The county doesn't really exist. It's run by City Hall. There was no Suffolk County administration. But I had met with the Boston Police Commissioner at a community meeting 3 weeks ago, and nothing's been done. If you go on YouTube and look up Boston Police Retaliate, you'd see Boston cops in my home security system outside my house in Quincy. This was at least a third event. I've been terrorized by the Boston police, the Quincy police, did a home invasion on me, and this is because of an FBI investigation back in 2008 to 2010 that was halted. And I was called in by the FBI twice, and apparently it was about the Menino and the corrupt fire union at the time. I was born in the city, lived there my whole life. I'm 10 years older than you. Worked for the city 25 years. And I'm like, why do they want me? But apparently I did know some things, and they just thought I was a threat. When the FBI...
Honestly, it's like we're living in communist China. My friends, the Democrats must be defeated before it's too late. Wake up, America.